Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z can sometimes seem to be on completely different wavelengths. Though the franchise does have a fairly natural progression when actually reading it or watching it through, were it not for having characters named Goku and Bulma, they are so different tonally and structurally that it can be hard to reconcile that these are two halves of the same story. And Dead Zone, taking place between the two series, is a film that helps to bridge that gap. And as a Dragon Ball movie, I think it is particularly interesting in regards to its canonicity. The premises of the original Dragon Ball films tended to just be rehashed elements from whichever section of the story was currently airing, and Dead Zone lifts from Raditz. Gohan is kidnapped by an otherworldly foe, and Goku must race to save him by making an unlikely alliance with Piccolo. The plot is bare bones and basically just an excuse for fighting, but what it lacks in complexity, it makes up for in tone and execution. Everything is incredibly tight. The animation is smooth and well posed, with the fight choreography being some of the most fluid in the franchise. The pace is constant, yet with enough space to breathe, and it shines some needed light on the soon-to-be underused character of Kami. Its true strength, however, is in its blending of tones. Everything feels like a sort of potpourri of both anime. Fights that maintain the physical wuxia choreography of Ball, but gain the visceral raw power of Z, or the feelings of stakes from Z quarantined to the personal scope and scale of a Ball-style villain. Speaking of which, Garlic Jr. is quite unique for a Dragon Ball villain, in that he actually has a character.
Got him!
His motivation is nothing more than simple revenge for his father, but this at least gives a little bit of a better reasoning for some of the actions that he takes in the movie, and the nice, bitter rivalry dynamic that develops between him and Kami. Plus, that he is the only character in the franchise,
until Super, I guess,
to actually succeed in gaining true immortality leads to a sense of hopelessness in his fight. And again, this is a subtle blending of the two anime's approaches to battles. Throughout most of Ball, Goku either outclassed or was on par with his opponents, and usually only lost due to extenuating circumstances. Conversely, especially in early Z, he is usually strong enough to barely scrape by the skin of his teeth. The villains are just so much more powerful that teamwork and any viable tactic or technique is necessary to win. The fight with Junior captures both feelings. At their most serious, Goku and Piccolo are stronger than him, but he just cannot be killed. The film is full of such moments, even down to the simple image of Goku in his Z design, young Gohan at his side, yet riding the Nimbus and wielding the Power Pole, has a remarkable effect. And it's on this image that I want to pause and select. Imagine for a moment the unthinkable, a world where DBZ didn't exist, and Dead Zone was the last time we saw Goku and company. No Saiyans or Frieza, no Kaio or Cell, or Buu or Beerus, or Jiren, or El Hermano, or this guy. The franchise ends on its more original Chinese-inspired fantastical tone, on this personal Gaiden side story. Goku has come into his own as a man and as a father, and with it, his story closes, on the hint that his very son may in fact come to surpass him someday. Someday. A day we will never see. I'm not saying at all that this is how things were intended to end by Toriyama, nor that I wish that that was the case. I love DBZ, despite its creative flaws and missteps, and actually I personally think that the Saiyan arc is the pinnacle of the franchise. But the way that the tone, structure, approach to battles, adventure, discovery evolves over the course of its run definitely retroactively artifacts several elements of the original Dragon Ball. According to several sources compiled by the Kanzenshu, of all the times Toriyama actually considered ending the franchise, the defeat of Piccolo at the 23rd Budokai was surprisingly never really one of them. He may have written the whole thing by the seat of his pants, but it seems like, at a certain point, the arrival of the Saiyans was inevitable. And even when looking at the production, the film was released a few months after Z started airing, and was very definitely produced and branded as a Z product. It's just interesting to wonder, tonally and structurally, what the perception and legacy of this franchise would be if Dead Zone were its epilogue. So then, where does it actually stand within the Dragon Ball franchise? Its canonicity is in question, as while it's less egregious compared to some of the other films which commit blatant infringements on the timeline, there is a real big snag of Krillin and co. becoming aware of Gohan before the start of Z. It also doesn't immediately affect the start of DBZ, and it's clearly following the same beats as Raditz. So it might even seem like it just falls into the same camp as all the other films. But then of course we have the issue of the infamous Garlic Jr. filler arc, which directly references the events here. This arc itself is in contention as to whether it's canon or not, but I think that this pushes Dead Zone into this sort of purgatory, this grey area, this, shall we say, Dead Zone. It's kind of like Schrodinger's canon, both canon and not canon at the same time until observed. Which, if you've seen my video on Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z's filler, you know my stance on the canonicity of a lot of the anime original material in general. This, for me, elevates Dead Zone amongst the likes of History of Trunks and Bardock the Father of Goku. Two works which are more or less treated as canon by fans, despite direct contradictions in the manga and in later films. The question of whether it's canon, and even if it's worth watching, is entirely up to the viewer's discretion. Though Dead Zone may seem like just another run-of-the-mill TV anime theatrical, and therefore promotional, release, the timing of its release, and its relation to later works, make it far more important than maybe was even intended. As it is, Dead Zone stands at the junction of two juggernauts, and does an admirable job of compiling the strengths and tones of both into a 40-minute slugfest. Out of the original 4 Dragon Ball movies, 13 Dragon Ball Z movies, and 2 Dragon Ball Z specials, I think it's the most solid. And while some had more creative animation, or stronger story depth, only one of them captures the best of both worlds.